All right. Good morning, Mike.
Good morning, Scott. How are you, sir?
Good, good. Loving the setup. Loving the
Yeah,
home office. I
yeah.
mean,
It's
the
it's kind of funny for for the viewers out here. I'm chuckling a little bit. Here we are working from home, waiting for the the snowstorm just to hit us and crush us here on the East Coast. So as I was setting up here, I got kind of spaces, new camera angles, things to kind of set up. A cat just walked in, jumped up on the table. So, who knows what's going to happen, right? I mean, we're just dealing with all kind of real life type kind of stuff as the
yeah,
storm heads our way, right? So,
yeah. I heard the bees didn't make it.
nah, it was sorry, right? It was kind of a bummer. That cold snap kind of reached out
Damn.
and hit them hard. But we'll see if we can find another nuke and get started in the spring here in another month or so.
Okay. Well, I hope so.
Yeah, I'm the world's worst beekeeper. You don't want to be
No.
a bee underneath my charge, right? I mean, well, there's not much you can do about the cold snap and
Right.
the weather, right? Hitting them. So, yeah.
Well, cool, Mike. Well, yeah. I just wanted to catch up today on as we're already a month and a half into
Yeah.
2025.
Can you believe
I know.
it? The year's going by, man, already.
Well, I have a theory that time is speeding up at this point. It's just, I mean, we're, part of, what we, do on a daily basis is, talk about kind of what's next in, transition of individual lives to civilian careers, if we're talking very specifically about the military retiree. But, the world is just changing in general. So, not only are we entering that environment, coming from the military structured environment, it's like whatever structure did exist in the civilian world is falling apart in various areas. What is it? How is AI going to change? What a job is, for
Sure.
example. Uh, Now a lot of the hiring processes and going through the idea of figuring out what do you want to do when you grow up. Those are just some core things that you want to stick with, and but you got to address them. Know which skill sets you're lacking,
Yeah.
and who to talk to,
Yeah.
who to have in your network. So I think that our theme of this year, or what I've want this year to be about, is because what you bring is the Blue Water Network, of course, and the idea of strengthening your network, or more specifically, finding those whom you're meant to serve, rather than just growing your network. Like we hear those buzzwords, personal branding, growing your network, military transition,
Yeah.
you know, just going to an interview, writing a resume. These are really just kind of buzzwords, and they feel like a checklist, but what do they really mean, and where do you start? And how do you align it to your individual goals? So that's why I was real excited when you put together the 2025 career progression guide.
Yeah.
I know you got Blue Water Digital coming up, so I thought our motto is provide resources.
Yeah.
Call it coaching, consulting. Someone to talk to as you're making these stressful decisions, whether it's finding a job, making a benefits decision, re-looking at finances. We understand, we want to empathize with that. But what's happening now in the increasing digital landscape is, how do you get known for that right fit? How do you increase the chances of getting found? And it comes back to another buzzword: your network is your net worth, right?
There you go. Yeah.
It's always who you know. We know it's 85% of job people.
Or as we like to say, maybe not who you know, but who knows you, right? I mean, that's really, kind of a
who knows you,
Yeah.
or who do you know that knows people?
Yeah.
Is it the right time? How much strategy are we putting into, surrounding yourselves with, call it like-minded people? Because you start to think about like, oh, am I being, selfish with who I'm connected with and stuff? Well, it's like, well, the better we are at that, then the better it is for the person you're connecting with, because
Right.
it can be, you want things to be reciprocal and stuff as growing a network.
You know,
But
you said something, Scott, that kind of spurred me to think, you said like, hey, individuals stepping into transition, or for, people watching the show this morning, we'd like to reference that time as career progression, right?
yeah.
So individuals that are stepping into that time, right? You see all these things, but what does it really mean, right? I mean, it's a little bit stereotypical to say that our members approach us, in similar fashion, but in many cases they do. They all step up. They want to associate the buzzwords that they've heard, right? Hey, I got to have a resume. Hey, I got to get out and buy professional attire. They just associate all these things they've heard. But what you said that resonated with me is figuring out what it means. What does it all mean? And that's a big differentiator to what you're helping us build, what you're building, what we're building here at Blue Water together. What we're building is that credibility, right? Like, there is no shortage of individuals in the space out there that are willing to share with you what they think you need to do. I mean, just let the words sink in here, right? Here's a list of what I think you need to do. But to your point, Scott, it's a very short list of people who can say, that's not the important part. Hey, this is how you do it, and this is why. That's the credibility part of this. There's not very many people that can explain to you how you're going to do this, what does it all mean, and why are you doing it this way, right? And that's the vantage point that we work so hard, right, to preserve. We're going to speak from the high ground. You like how I worked that Army term in there? We're going to speak from the high ground, right? The high ground.
You're a fighter pilot. You always have the high ground.
We always have. Well, hopefully anyway. But yeah, it's important to maintain that credibility, right? And you only get that really having been there and done that, right? And that's what we bring to the table. And that's what we're working hard. So we have content, we have insight, we have, products available, resources, your word, right? Resources available. But when you couple that with, right, the high ground, with the credibility, the expertise on the network, in other words, hey, allow me to introduce you to 400 other individuals who have navigated this space to their next success. It doesn't get any more credible than that, right? That's the network that we're preserving here at Blue Water that you're a part of. And I think that's important, right? So anyway, I digress a little bit, but when you threw that out, that just kind of made me think about that, right?
Yeah, and that's the point is, to share the fact that you have the resources, and the network. And so you've just put together this career progression guide a couple weeks ago. And I think it's a great product. I just wanted to give you a chance to share your thoughts on kind of what you wanted to do with this, for 2025. And I think you're talking about updating it each year. Like, what's your objective? We can kind of scroll through it a little bit.
We so often try to capture all of what's going on in our life, and you're no different, right? We do have a lot of things going on. We're working on podcasts. We're working on different ventures, right? We have in-person engagements. One of the things we're trying to launch this year is a virtual cohort, right? Where we offer the ability for members, to no fault of their own, who are scattered all over the world, right? Who say, hey, Mike, are you ever going to offer a virtual capability? And, we've been resistant to that, Scott. I'll be honest with you, because we value the in-person, the high touch, small group, right? That environment. We think that's very impactful and meaningful. But man, I'll be honest with you, as we start our 5th year, I've been not really forced to, but I've been, encouraged to rethink this. I've got individuals out there, Scott, that want to be part of the Blue Water family, but it's not their fault. Like, they're in Beijing, China. They're in Naples, Italy. They're in Iwakuni, Japan. They're in Hawaii. They're never going to be coincident with us, in a location where we just happen to be hosting an in-person cohort, and that's not their fault, right? So Steve Weeman, myself, Scott McDonald, like we've kicked this around and we just said, okay, well, we're very transparent with our membership. We just, and we advertise it like this. We go, hey, look, while we still value primarily the in-person experience, we recognize there are individuals that are out there, right, that are never going to be able to take advantage of an in-person experience because it's not their fault, right? They're just not co-located. So we are going to offer a virtual cohort, and it's going to start. It'll launch this year in August, and we've got it set up over 4 1-week sessions. And we really maintain that high touch, right? At the end of each week, we come together, online, right, in a Teams meeting, and we go over, a lot of the content that members will review. And we have now recorded our messages, right? So we actually had, a company come in with us and spend a day as we were given a cohort to a recent cohort and record the message just for this purpose so we could share it with members who will never be able to make it in person. And then we think if we roll the content, that recorded message with some online engagement, we think we can make, maybe I would say, a pretty impactful, right, virtual cohort.
Yeah.
Maybe not as good as in person, but the next best thing for those individuals who can't make it. So the career progression guide, and again, I kind of digress a little bit, but, I wanted to be able to put out something just to kind of capture those wave tops on, hey, don't forget, here's the basics in your career progression here, in transition, think about these things. Hey, we've got some other things going on, right? Just to kind of be aware of. And it's just another publication that we're able to kind of put out to our members and potential future members. So, hey, we're pretty excited about that, right? Our educational consultant recognition, right? So,
yeah,
we were.
They just found you and reached out to you. That's great.
Yeah, I mean, people track this kind of stuff, and it's mostly a lot of it is done off of social media, and that's really a testament to our members who take the time to share, right? Their experiences on us, and there are companies that track that out there. And so we index kind of high over the last year. So we were excited about that.
And I think the reason that happens is, looking at the table of contents of kind of how you structure your content, the priorities are, being in the right state of mind, just defining, what is career progression even mean to you? Because really that's what the identity portion is.
Yeah.
Because what this is, it's not finding a job. That's part of the process. The real process, is, redefining yourself outside of a uniform.
Yeah.
When we're in uniform, it's pretty easy. You know your MOS, your job description.
Yeah.
You know what your rank means, but then so does anybody who runs into you.
Sure.
They immediately can identify, all right, in the military, high rank or whatever.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right.
So, that goes away. And what this process is about, real career progression is, defining your own new ranks. And the cool thing is you get to decide that. Sure,
you do.
You got to get hired and convince other people for it, but you also don't have to take the job.
It's exactly right. You're looking for that best fit, right? And so we're really excited to share some of these insights out there. And it's not meant to be, nor is it, a very in-depth approach, but it's just kind of a wave top look back with a few key call outs, right, in each of these areas, right? And there'll be a gem or two in each page, in each topic there for members just to kind of, review and look at and go, oh, that's a great call out, right? Need to think about these kind of things. So,
yeah, no, I think it's a, great way to act as a, almost like a workbook, for people, especially on the
Yeah.
digital platform as well.
Well, thanks for pulling it up and sharing it here. So, and it means a lot. I mean, if, for the listeners out there, if Scott looks at something like this and says, man, nice guide, because you build these things, you build some
it's not that I build them.
absolutely impactful products. So coming from you, that means a lot. So thank you.
No, it's the fact I've been in this, military transition space for so long, and there's a lot of great resources out there. But to tailor it specifically to this audience, I think is what was missing in a lot of different ways. So we've got a page to go. I put a link. If people want to download the guide, they can go here, get an email from Mike, and if they got more questions, they can just respond to that email.
No, I love the page that you built there, right? And again, this is, and this, but for our listeners, right? It is a way for us to bring a lot of resources in rapid fashion to you. All you got to do, just I'm sure Scott will post a link out there. Click on the link. Right, you can download a copy of the guide, share your email with us, and we've got other resources that we would love to share with you. So, if you're going to be stepping into transition or career progression over the next 12, 18, 24 months, listen, you're going to blow through that time. And I like to remind people, we all think, and you and I have lived this, I certainly can remember, we always all think, I'm going to, hey, you know what? I don't need to do that today, Scott. I can do that next month or a couple of months. Hey, when I get closer to getting out, I'll have more time that I can really focus on this. Listen, you don't have more time, the closer you get to stepping out on terminal leave. Your competing interests are going to go through the roof. You're going to have VA medical. You're going to have out processing. You're going to have DD 214. You're going to have, family commitments. You're going to have all these other things. Like, you think you're going to have more time available, but in reality and in execution, you have way less time available than what you do today. Right. So don't wait. Right. Start now.
Yeah. And the other thing they're going to have is competition.
Sure.
In some ways. And I saw this quote last week, and it kind of tied together a lot of the stuff we've been talking about. When we're thinking about finding the job, because I know a lot of times we're asking, am I getting paid what I'm worth? If I can feel good about that, and I feel good about what I'm doing, then great. We've had success. But the kind of parlance of the times is, at some point they're going to want to check out online, or they're even, whether it's through LinkedIn or through some sort of system, even if it's just uploading resumes, you're going to have to be more familiar with the digital landscape when it comes to being found. And, so
that's a great, Scott, you're so wise in this space. And I just want to emphasize, you listen, we have a lot, of our members who are fairly senior, right? 05s, 06s, a rapid growing 07 contingent. And we impress upon them, hey, your digital brand, right? Getting out in the space, doing these kind of things. And more often than not, the response we initially get, well, Mike, I'm not a big Facebook, or I'm not a big, LinkedIn, or, hey, I don't want to go out and like people, and that's not my thing. And I'm going, hey, look, I get all that. And listen, I lived through that. I was risk averse. I did not want a social media presence. But here's what I want people to understand. And this is what we share with our members. And you hit the nail on the head, Scott. These are the tools that people are using to find you. Yeah. Think about it. These are the modern day tools that people are using to find you. If you are not discoverable with these tools, do we think that puts you at some, I'll call it, a disadvantage? And the short answer is yes, we do. Now, how much, to what degree? Okay, that's another conversation. But do we ultimately think you're at some disadvantage? Yeah. And the other thing I would just kind of caveat, and let me just say bottom line up front. If you don't have a social media presence, does that mean that you will not get a job? No, that's not what we're saying. Don't misread me. But, to use a football analogy, and I know your dad is a big football coach, and, that's near and dear to your heart.
Go Buckeyes.
Yeah. And it's a game of inches, right? Transition is a game of inches. And so why, by design, put yourself at any disadvantage, right? Look, have a social media footprint, and we can help you with that, right? And a little bit goes a long way, right? Would you agree? I mean, what do you think about that?
Well, I kind of know some of the stats in that it's not that it puts you at a disadvantage if you don't do it. It's that if you do it slightly more strategically, it'll put you at a much greater advantage.
At a much greater advantage. Yeah.
It's one of the stats I heard once was the average, let's say, C-level type person you'd want to be connected with on LinkedIn. The average one of them has about 1,000 connections. They're not doing a whole bunch of posting and getting followings and stuff. They may or may not be active, but they know they got to be on LinkedIn and pay attention somewhat. Right. So wouldn't hurt to connect with that kind of guy who might be able to say, hey, this sounds like a good connect, send you over to the hiring manager. Right. So they have an average of 1,000 connections, but only an average of 1% of people do any consistent posting and engagement on LinkedIn. So if you're connected with that person and you are active, and posting on LinkedIn isn't the only way to do this kind of a thing, but then you're one of 10 people showing up in their feed every day.
Sure.
Yep. And it's, whether they read it or not, it's just there's so much distractions when it comes to attention, whether it's the platform itself or, just other things going on in life. The idea is, do you want to, or are you comfortable with using these tools and, entering the digital landscape? And maybe for not everybody, hey, they don't want to do it. That doesn't interest them at all. And maybe they shouldn't. And there are going to be other traditional routes to, find your network and your connections. There's still people who love to go have coffee. Trust me. And I think that's even coming back.
Networking.
Right. And that's why you do the in-person stuff. Like there are plenty of resources for that. What I found is, for people that have said, what, I'm kind of thinking of doing something on YouTube. I don't know where to start, but I have an idea, whether or not it's related to them getting hired or not. Maybe it's a side project. We've had members that have gone into podcasting, right? Some people have blogs and they just write, and maybe they've kind of started their own consulting thing on the side, or maybe they do just know I should be doing more on LinkedIn or maybe some other platform, and I just kind of don't know where to start or what that even looks like, or, again, what is the why? What's personal branding? Stop calling it that. Let's, we can call it something else. I've got a term for it. I like calling it the, we got rid of our military uniform that defined us. We need to create a digital uniform.
The digital uniform. I like it. Yeah.
So, obviously this is a topic that comes up a lot, not for everybody, but what I want to do this year is put together, it's kind of a small group, meet up for folks who do want to say, I'm thinking of, posting on a topic, or I just want to understand, how does the algorithm work behind all of this? There's a lot of nuance when it comes to it. And I've just dabbled in this space, for so long, just trying to create my own job for myself, essentially. But I've learned it. Now, I can't say I've done everything right, because the one thing I have learned is pick a path or two and stick to it. When I've dabbled in kind of a bit of everything, but that also allowed me to kind of realize how it all ties together, and maybe who it's good for and not for, if you want to be on video or not, or go live. So for people that do want to explore that, that's something I've been talking with a number of people about. They might want to get together once or twice a month, kind of do a group call, talk about some of this stuff, but
That'd be great.
be more hands-on.
Yep.
And say, all right, let's pull up a LinkedIn profile. Like, what are some of the
Look at it
widgets
real time. Yeah.
Yeah. What are some widgets on here you didn't realize you could do?
Dude, I love it. I
that
think
might help.
that's another great resource, right? And part and parcel to what it is we're trying to build, right, for the greater membership, right? And so, no, that's fantastic. I like it. So when do you think? I mean, you think like here in the near term, Scott?
Oh, yeah. I mean, because I'm really selfishly, I'm trying to create my networking, group. I work from home all the time. I don't have haven't had an office to go to in years, and I do try to go to local networking events. And I've had lots of Zoom veteran meetup groups I've been a part of, and that's where Zoom does come in handy. There's pluses and minuses, but it does allow you to at least have a conversation without having to fly across the country, a conversation with anybody without having to fly somewhere.
No, I
try to meet up in person at conferences, right?
Yeah. I mean, in person is exciting, but again, I come all the way back to what I shared at the start of the discussion this morning, right? There's a whole lot of people that just aren't going to be able to be in proximity to make that in-person connection. And that's not their fault, right? So why would we penalize them, right? We don't want to do that. So no, I love it. Hey, another thing along maybe similar lines is we're going to try to launch our Blue Water Digital, right?
Yeah. I was going to ask if you had an update.
This year. Wow. I wonder if I can figure out how to do this, right? I don't know. I don't want to mess this up, Scott. Right? This is gonna.
If you want to send me a link, I can pull it up.
Yeah, maybe that's easier. Maybe I'll just do that. Right? So, let me just put it in the chat, and I'll just paste it there. There you go. But yeah, it's Blue Water Digital is going to be our answer, right, to as we like to say, when we do cohort over cohort. And Scott, you've been a part of these, right? I mean, where we'll take all attendees, our lunch roundtable guests, right, and and then our instructor base, right? And we become very connected in that regard. But until Blue Water Digital, there was really no mechanism in place to introduce you to the 40 other cohorts over the last, 3.5 years that we've conducted, right? And think about it. That's the network, right? That's
40 of them already.
Dude, we're getting very close to 400 individuals in the Blue Water Network. I mean, if you think about it, we will be, 450, getting close to 500 as we step into 2025, right? And that's, all spread between, 200 and 250 other companies, industries that are out there with keen insights, compensation insights, and a viable, tangible network for current and future members to plug in with. I mean, that's pretty impressive.
That's the jump start from when we're talking about, visibility, figuring out your identity. Like, who do I talk to even see what's out there? Like, I just want to be curious and learn, what options are. You've got this database, would allow you to kind of filter, like, all right, I'm thinking of these things. Maybe there's some people to talk to in this industry or this job level or income level.
It's I call it removing the fog of war, right? You can imagine that many of our members, as they step into career progression, there's some very basic questions that they want to know. And you already said one of them. They go, hey, I have no idea where I want to go or what I want to do. hey, Mike, where's everybody else going? What are other people doing? Well, analytically, I can now answer that because we know where every single one of those individuals has landed. We know what they're pursuing. We know how long it took them to get there. We know what that company extended to them as an offer. We know what the member negotiated, and we know ultimately what they landed on. We can tell you analytically, did they negotiate their base pay? Yes. Were they successful? We have all of those numbers and analytics and breakdown so that we can share with members walking through the door. It's not an opinion. It's not what Mike Wallace or Steve Weeman or Scott McDonald or anybody else thinks. No. The discussion starts like this. Based on 400 individuals prior to you over the last 3.5 years, here's what they've pursued. Here's how long it took them to get there. And kind of here's where they landed, right, on a compensation structure, right? And analytically, Scott, that's powerful, right? I mean, that's no longer a guesswork or that's no longer opinion based. That is like, dude, this is reality. And oh, by the way, here's this network that's waiting for you to plug in with to have a conversation so that they can share with you how they were successful in navigating this space to their next success, right?
Yeah.
So we think that, and I'll be honest with you, and I share this with members, when we started this in our first year, 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, I mean, small group, high touch. Let me say it again. We're small group, high touch. Well, that doesn't accumulate very fast, right? After the first 3 months in the first quarter, I can remember going, I got to have a hole in my head. Like, what in the world, But I remember from my time at Amazon and starting up of Amazon Air, we tracked everything. Data and analytics was king. And we would track stuff that we didn't even know why we were tracking it. It may not be important today, but eventually, sometime in the future, it was going to be important, right? Mm-hmm. And so we just tracked this. And that's really kind of the approach that we took with Blue Water Digital. Man, I'm going to extract and track as much information I can from our members through their registration process, through the feedback loop, through the landing reports, through everything. I'm going to track as much as what I can. And now we have a platform, Blue Water Digital, that we're making these relationships, right? In other words, I can tell you, hey, when should I step into a Blue Water cohort? What's the optimum time to do that? Well, we're starting to understand these relationships. Hey, what's the average amount of time it's going to take me from the time I narrow my pursuit down to a company I'm interested in to getting a signed offer letter? How long is that, right? People guess at it. Well, I can tell you it's 129 days. It's 4 months and 9 days. That's the average amount of time that we have within our makeup right now, right, of our members that pursue their next success. So it's exciting, Scott. I think that data and the analytics that we have that are really kind of driving us to some interesting discussions, right?
Yeah.
But anyway, this is Blue Water Digital, and I have got a meeting exactly after this. In fact, we're 9:36, so in 20 minutes, I'm meeting with our Marathon IT consulting team. We've got a few edges to kind of round on the platform, but we will start our rollout of Blue Water Digital this week.
Okay.
We will launch it we're going to do what's called a rolling launch. So I'll go all the way back to January 2021, our very first flagship cohort, our plank owners, right? And we will roll it out probably to the first 3 or 4 cohorts this week. We'll shoot it out to them. They can establish their account. They can go in. They'll be able to see the entire Blue Water network. And then, in true launch fashion, we'll let them bounce on the platform to see if anything breaks, right? But we'll be watching it very closely. And, barring any huge issues with the platform, then we will roll it out to maybe the next 6 or 8 cohorts. And then we'll kind of step back for a week or so and just kind of see if everything is working correctly. And then really, Scott, you get 100 and some odd people on the platform. If there's no issues and everything's working good, dude, we will launch it to the rest of the 300 plus members that are out there, and people will be able to log on and they'll be able to see, right, what's going on in the platform. And this is a version 1, right? This will be a living, breathing, improving product, right, as we go forward. But it's time for us to launch this thing and to get it out, into the hands of our members, right, so that they can start seeing and hopefully extracting some value from it, right?
Yeah, I'm excited for you because I know you've been working really hard on this.
Oh.
And really, real proud of the fact that you did the Amazon thing and got the data because now it is so useful. What about from when I think about your 2025 career guide, and then of course Blue Water Digital from an organizational standpoint to whether it's an organization that's just preparing their unit for post-military life to I think your guide can be a wave top for helping them just hey everybody, this is what you need to be aware of. But then Blue Water Digital, how do you see either organizations or companies could they also benefit from this platform?
You bet. One of the version 2, in fact, in this phone call today, it will be rounding up loose ends on the platform for our launch this weekend. But we will segue that conversation to what does version 2 look like? Mm-hmm. And version 2 will be companies being able now to post position descriptions on here for the Blue Water membership to take a look at. And you're probably saying in your head, you're like, hey, Mike, that's great. That's Indeed or Monster.com or whatever. You can post a job anywhere. But here's the difference, right? Like, we know the makeup of our audience. We track it month to month. I can tell you how many 05s, 06s, how many Navy, how many Marine Corps, Army, Air Force, Coast Guard, right? GS Blue Water members that we have. I know what industries they're at now. I know how many have landed, how many haven't. I know everything. So a company coming to post a position, they can work in and out the Hampton Roads area and try to post these things. The way I like to describe it is they can go fishing, and one fish out of every 25 that they catch may be a keeper. Or you can fish in the blue water pond and every fish you catch is a keeper, right? Yeah. I mean, think about it, right? If you are looking for, and you can go in, a company can go in kind of like a Chinese menu. I only want to post this to Navy, 05s and 06s, aviators who are available, from this time period to this time. Like you can select it, and now that the platform will post it only to those individuals. Or you can say, no, I want to post it to everybody. And then everybody on the platform gets notified of this position description. And then companies list their point of contact for informational discussions. We, Blue Water, have information likely on companies, right? So it's a very exciting engagement for companies to come to find the talent that they're looking for, which is a benefit to our Blue Water members as well, too.
Right. So, I think it's also because, being part of the network, people that have already been through any part of the, the civilian to career, the military to civilian transition process, people are going to ask them something eventually, what'd you do? Or what do you think about this? And, they want to share resources. And so while they might be in a job already and a job gets posted that's not for them, they can immediately turn to their colleague next to them who might be a good fit for, or someone who is going through retirement at that moment that, maybe they're not even Blue Water yet, but they can say, hey, look what just came through. Maybe you should consider, joining as well.
No, exciting. So, that's for sure. Right.
That's a great resource, but
yeah.
Well, cool, Mike. Well, I know you got to prep for that call, so I'll let you get going.
Well, listen, stay warm today, right?
I have not been paying attention. All I know, my gym said they were closing, and I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm from Ohio. If it snows, it snows.
Well, yeah, this isn't going to shock your system, right? I think, I checked the temperature outside before the call.
Cool.
What is it, like 29 degrees, man? I mean, at least where I'm at. And so I think here in another hour or two, we're probably going to start to have some flurries. So it'll be interesting to see how it accumulates, right?
All right. I'm going to go sledding down the 3-foot sand dune.
Well, I appreciate you, Scott. Thanks for keeping us on track and doing these talks, right? I really think they're valuable. And it just, again, it keeps a lot of our membership up on some of the tools that we're building for them that are available. And again, I just want to come back to the biggest differentiator is this isn't just content. This isn't just tools. This comes backed by a network of individuals that are available to have meaningful conversations, right, with future members as they step in and pursue their next success, right? So I like it.
No, absolutely.
Thanks, brother.
So
Yeah.
if you want to get Mike's guide, go to, I got a link below for that. And if you're interested in kind of exploring this idea with me about the digital uniform idea, I got a page here with a quick
I love it.
interest survey. Don't need your name if you're not interested. If you just want to fill out the survey to give your input, but ideally we're looking for people who might want to be involved. But we can have a call, talk about it. Small group, 5 to 10 people type of a thing for folks that, again, kind of say, all right, I want to do something more online. Where do I even start? I'd like to have a peer group to kind of, bat ideas around, sit around, have coffee, but let's not just network. What's your elevator pitch? Do you know anybody for me? No, let's actually do some hands-on digital stuff, digital skill set development. So I got a concept brief here people can run through, and I'd love it if you'd, if you're interested, go ahead and take this quick survey. Take you 4 or 5 minutes.
I like it, Scott. I look forward to it, man. It's going to be exciting.
All right, dude.
All right. Well, listen, stay warm, man. Stay in touch.
All right. Thanks. You too.
All right.